Even some of the biggest pop stars sometimes have disappointing eras they can't seem to break out of. In this video, we'll look at 8 flop eras that lasted longer than expected. Fergie. After a successful time with the Black Eyed Peas, Fergie's solo debut, The Duchess, was released in 2006. It was huge, spawning 5 massive singles, with London Bridge, Big Girls Don't Cry, and Glamorous, all hitting #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. But when she finally returned with her solo work Double Duchess in 2017, after more than a decade, the music industry had completely changed. Fans were excited at first, but the rollout was confusing. The album suffered from multiple delays, and when the lead single LA Love dropped in 2014, it was shooting for that DJ Mustard sound that was trending at the time, but it didn't have the impact he expected. Fergie took a break and eventually followed it up with the second single MILF Money in 2016, which went viral because of its music video, featuring Kim Kardashian and Chrissy Teigen. But the song itself didn't translate into real chart success, stalling at number 34 on the Billboard Hot 100. Even with the warning signs, Fergie refused to let the era die. She launched yet another single, Life Goes On, in late 2016, but it completely flopped, missing the Hot 100 entirely. She finally released the album in September 2017, 3 years after the initial rollout started. She also left her label to self-release the album, so that had a negative impact on its commercial performance. The album debuted at number 19 on the Billboard 200, selling 20,000 units in its first week, and for an artist who once dominated pop music, it was a very low number. The most infamous moment from this era, however, had nothing to do with releasing music. It was her disastrous NBA All-Star Game national anthem performance in early 2018. Her bizarre jazz-inspired rendition was roasted by the internet, overshadowing any remaining momentum from Double Duchess. Since then, Fergie has been focusing on motherhood, stepping away from the music industry, and a comeback doesn't seem to be on the horizon. Katy Perry. Katy Perry's fall from grace is one of pop music's most talked about declines. Once a chart-topping machine, she had 9 #1 hits between 2008 and 2014. But after the mixed response to Witness in 2017, she needed a strong comeback. Instead, Smile turned into one of the most drawn-out flop eras. It all started in 2019 with the release of Never Really Over, a solid pop track that cracked the Hot 100 Top 20. However, despite its initial buzz, her record label delayed the album's rollout for another year. Katy then dropped Small Talk, which failed to chart, and Harley's in Hawaii, which also bombed on the charts but became a sleeper streaming hit. By the time Daisies dropped in May 2020, the COVID era had shut down the music industry. The song barely scraped the Hot 100's top 40, and the album debuted at number 5 on the Billboard 200, only selling 50,000 units in its first week, a far cry from her past multi-platinum albums. She then transitioned to her role as a judge on American Idol. After making a lot of money, Katy attempted another comeback in 2024 with her 7th studio album 143. The lead single, Woman's World, aimed to be an empowering anthem, but was met with a lot of criticism and controversy due to the involvement of Dr. Luke and its shallow representation of feminism. The album's next singles failed to gain significant traction, and 143 underperformed, debuting at number 6 on the Billboard 200, selling 48,000 units in its first week. It felt out of touch as Katy struggled to fit into today's climate, extending her flop era. Alessia Cara. Alessia Cara's career started off great. Her debut single, Here, became an unexpected sleeper hit in 2015, peaking at number 5 on the Billboard Hot 100 and positioning her as an exciting new voice in pop music. Her debut album, Know It All, performed decently, but her career truly skyrocketed when she collaborated with Zedd on Stay, a 2017 hit that reached number 7 on the Billboard Hot 100. That same year, she was featured on 1-800 by Logic, which became an even bigger success. To cap it all off, she won the Best New Artist award at the 2018 Grammys, though the win was met with backlash from the public, who believed she wasn't really a new artist at the time. Unfortunately, this backlash was a starting point to the downturn. Alessia's sophomore album, The Pains of Growing, in 2018, was meant to establish her as a more mature artist, but instead, it marked the beginning of a flop era. The lead single failed to chart on the Billboard Hot 100, making little impact. Follow-up singles like Trust My Lonely and Out of Love also went nowhere, leaving the album without any hits. Nothing seemed to stick. Determined to bounce back, Alessia quickly moved on to her next project, releasing In the Meantime in 2021. Unfortunately, her underperformance continued, as the singles didn't generate any buzz, unlike her earlier work, which was relatable and went mainstream. The new songs struggled to connect with fans. Even though her career is now on life support, she continues to release new music, as her next album, Love and Hyperbole, is expected to be released in February of this year. Justin Timberlake. By 2018, Justin Timberlake was already a pop icon, with multiple hit albums and a reputation as one of the biggest male pop stars of the 2000s and 2010s. So when he announced Man of the Woods, expectations were high. However, from the moment the album rollout began, it was clear that something wasn't clicking. The lead single, Filthy, confused listeners with its robotic funk production and failed to gain traction, peaking at number 9 on the Billboard Hot 100 before falling off the charts. The second single, Supplies, did even worse, peaking at number 71. Even though the next single, Say Something, did well, it was definitely his flop era compared to his previous success. After that, Justin got his Super Bowl halftime show, but it was met with lukewarm reception, as it was very forgettable. After a 6-year hiatus, he returned with his 6th studio album, Everything I Thought It Was, on March 15, 2024. The album debuted on number 4 on the Billboard 200, earning 67,000 album equivalent units, his lowest opening week to date. The singles from the album failed to gain traction, extending his flop era. Trey Songz. Trey Songz was once one of R&B's biggest stars, dominating the late 2000s and early 2010s, with hits like Say Ah, Bottoms Up, and Can't Help But Wait. However, by the time he released Remain, the album, in 2017, the music landscape had changed. Coming off the Trigger era, with huge hits like Nana, it was a big disappointment. The album's lead single, Nobody Else But You, was an attempt to bring back his romantic R&B appeal, but it failed to make a significant impact, only managing to peak at a low number 92 on the Billboard Hot 100. Trey launched an entire mock reality show, Tremaine the Playboy, to promote the album. While this could have been a smart marketing move, it failed to generate much buzz. As a result, the album itself debuted on number 3 on the Billboard 200, selling 67,000 units, but it quickly fell off the charts, with no major hits keeping it afloat. Despite the underwhelming response, Trey continued promoting the album for months. While he still had a strong fan base, it was clear that the general public had moved on. This marked the beginning of his commercial decline, as he followed it up with Back Home in 2020, which peaked at number 15 on the Billboard 200, making it his lowest charting album since his debut. After a string of sexual assault allegations, his career was an all-time low, and it doesn't seem like he could revive it. Jessie J. At one point, Jessie J seemed poised for global domination, with hits like Price Tag, Domino, and Bang Bang. She was a force in the early 2010s, showing off her powerhouse vocals on banger after banger. However, things started to shift with her third album, Sweet Talker, in 2014. While Bang Bang was a massive hit, the album didn't perform as expected, debuting on number 10 on the Billboard 200, selling 25,000 copies in its first week. After a brief hiatus, Jessie returned in 2018 with ROSC, a 4-part album that was meant to show her evolution as an artist. However, the rollout was a complete disaster. The lead single, Think About That, flopped. Jessie said she was moving away from chasing hits, but the problem was, there was no clear audience for the project, as it didn't really appeal to a new crowd. It didn't even manage to chart on the Billboard 200. Then, she followed it up with her Christmas album, The Christmas Day, which was odd. While her vocal abilities were still there, it didn't do much for her mainstream career. The last single she released was back in 2021, as her career seemed to be over. She has been struggling with her health, and at this point, Jessie has become an artist who still has undeniable talent, but struggles to find a musical identity. Unlike some artists who quickly pivot after a flop, her flop era has been long. Chance the Rapper. Chance the Rapper was at the peak of his career when he dropped The Big Day in 2019, after winning a Grammy for Best Rap Album for Coloring Book and being hailed as the future of hip-hop. Anticipation was high for his debut studio album. Unfortunately, The Big Day was a big disappointment. Instead of the introspective, gospel-influenced rap that made him famous, Chance delivered an album that was all over the place. It became one of the most hated albums of the decade, as fans and critics were left confused. Then the memes quickly started rolling in, with many joking that he had just released the I Love My Wife anthem. The album debuted at number 2 on the Billboard 200, which wasn't bad, but it quickly tumbled down the charts. The album effectively killed his career. Even his 2020 arena tour was cancelled, with some speculating that poor ticket sales was likely the reason. He had a stint as a judge on The Voice and pops up on different TV shows here and there. It wasn't until 2022 that he started releasing new music. Even though the songs sound good, the public has moved on, and Chance hasn't been able to break away from his flop era. Iggy Azalea. Iggy Azalea's rise in 2014 with the new classic was unprecedented. She had a massive #1 hit with Fancy and a string of successful collaborations. But after a series of controversies and a cancelled sophomore album Digital Distortion, her career took a sharp downturn. In 2019, she attempted a comeback with In My Defense, an independently released album meant to prove that she was still a force in rap. Unfortunately, it did the opposite. The album's lead single, Sally Walker, had decent YouTube views, but failed to gain traction on the charts. Despite Iggy's best efforts, including a strong social media presence and multiple visual releases, none of the singles from the album managed to make an impact. The album only debuted at number 50 on the Billboard 200, a far cry from her peak. By the time she moved on to her next project, End of an Era, in 2021, much of the industry had already written her off. While she still had fans, they weren't really interested in her music. She has made a lot of money on OnlyFans though, but when it comes to music, she has been in her flop era, close to a decade now. What long flop eras did I miss? Tell me in the comments below.